If there's a small film community that's sort of really working at kind of honing their craft, you've got a great opportunity because the competition pool isn't that large in those situations. And there are some really great actors. You get to find out who they are, and there are some very talented people that are part of that smaller pool. And if you can find them and suss them out, you can build a reel, you can get experience because you don't have 1,000 other people competing for a part. Well, I don't know that you'd say um, I had a first big break in the conventional sense. I mean, at least when I hear other actors talk about it, they talk about that moment that they landed in Hollywood. They, did a bunch of little things, and then there was that big moment that everyone knows them for. Um, because my career was kind of split into two phases. I it was sort of in my early 20s, and I was still out there in Fredericton, in New Brunswick, on the east coast of Canada, and I I was trying my hand at short films and had done a little bit of theater in high school, and so when I was trying to move beyond that, also was I got married very early on, and my ex and I were kind of at odds on the viability of living in that area for me at least, because of what my career ambitions were in the area of film and even fitness at the time. And but we were trying to compromise, and so that's where I started kind of really moving into a lot of the short film work that was going on at the filmmakers cooperative and things like that. So in phase one, I had my big breaks, if you will, in different ways. Like while I was out there, I launched my work on my documentary film. Um, that was a big deal. And actually, that happened probably close to the time, or maybe a couple years after I had started getting some breaks on lead roles in films that were coming in from out of town. There were some lower budget projects. There was one called The Cuckoo Cafe. I was cast in the lead in that. I know they had a lot of problems pulling that together, I think, at the time. And I don't even know if that really made it to market, actually. But then there was another director that came into town who had been known for doing a lot of television across Canada as a director for hire on a lot of shows. And he put together a feature film project through the university, and they'd heard about me doing a lead role, so they hired me for that. And the Filmmakers Cooperative, actually, a few people there got some ambitions to create some TV pilots. So I was involved in a television pilot as the lead in that as well. And I was doing my documentary. So all of a sudden, all of these little things that I'd done before that, little short films, things like that, I started seeing them result in kind of some momentum building around me. And so that was sort of, in a sense, the big break that I needed to kind of at least invigorate my own appetite and realize that there was a possibility that, I could maybe make something out of this. And it was also fuel for what I was doing myself as well, in terms of trying to frame out a character type or a story type that I was sort of drawn to as a writer and a storyteller when it came to doing my own projects. But then rolling that forward, of course, there was when I finally dove into a larger market in Toronto. Um, I actually quite quickly was able to start picking up work on some pretty notable shows like Suits and Nikita and a number of other shows that kind of one after the other. I was getting smaller parts, but in fairly substantial shows, and all the way up to the point where I was working on X Men, one of the X Men movies, and working with Chris Rock on his movie Spiral. And so it was kind of an accumulative process on that end of things. There were just large scopes that were, or projects that were larger in scope that I started getting into, and that foundation that I had was very helpful for me when it came to being in a smaller market. That's actually something that I encourage a lot of people to consider when they're, especially I get, sometimes I get kids or parents with kids that will ask me, oh, my kid's just starting in the business and we don't live in an area where it's a huge industry. But one of the things I can say is that it's a great place to be when you're getting started in many cases. If there's a small film community that's sort of really working at kind of honing their craft, you've got a great opportunity because the competition pool isn't that large in those situations. And there are some really great actors. You get to find out who they are, and there are some very talented people that are part of that smaller pool. And if you can find them and suss them out, you can build a reel, you can get experience because you don't have 1,000 other people competing for a part necessarily. Maybe you've only got 40 or 50 other people that are competing for a particular part that might fit for you. Maybe it's even less than that. So you can build what a lot of people struggle to build in a larger center in terms of a reel and a body of work. And you may even be able to get some substantial stuff in stuff that's coming in from out of town. I know there were often films from some of the larger networks that would come in and film there. And again, you're still part of that smaller pool. So when you're trying to kind of build your initial portfolio of work, that helps you quite a bit for getting a foundation that sets you up with an agent when you get into a larger center. And you can start getting those bigger breakout roles, maybe a little faster than someone who's just starting from scratch in the city and has been really trying to find good independent work to get involved in, because there's a lot of people doing it, but there's also a lot more stuff that's a bit questionable in terms of its quality to sift through. And smaller communities give you an opportunity to find the good stuff maybe a little faster as well. And so that's one of the advantages of that two-phase process. Mine got a little bit more delayed in terms of the time, and I think I wouldn't encourage someone to stay maybe in a smaller bubble for quite as long. But at the same time, if you can take advantage of knowing what your goals are and really, aiming to use the space you're in and use that in the next market when you move up the scale a little bit, that can help quite a bit.